Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In this video, we will discuss about the buck converter. The circuit diagram for the buck converter is shown in front of you. It consists of a switch S1, that may be a BJT, maybe a MOSFET, maybe a power BJT, maybe IGBT. So different switches are used, but that should be a fully controllable switch. So here you can see the control block. Basically, it is representing the circuit which is generating the gate voltage to the gate voltage for this switch, right? Vg is our input voltage, that is constant, and the current that will be delivered by this source, let's suppose that is equal to Ig when your switch is in the on state. So when this switch is turned on, this current Ig will flow. So what will be the voltage over here when your switch is turned on? This will be at positive potential because this is positive, and because of that your diode will be in the off state because you have the positive voltage at the cathode of this diode with respect to this reference point. Okay, then this part you can say is going to act as a filter, and then we are going to connect the load over here. Load is being considered as the resistive one, and load voltage is, let's suppose, V0, and the load current is I0, right? So when you are going to turn on this switch, the current is going to flow like that through the inductor, through the capacitor back to your source, or through the load back to your source. So these are the two possible paths for the flow of the current when you are going to turn on the switch by applying the gate voltage or the base voltage. So this gate voltage is basically applied at the base of this one, and microcontroller or microprocessor first of all decides about that one, and then that information is given to an amplifier, and that amplifier then steps up that voltage. Then we have the isolation circuit, and then finally we apply the voltage at the base or gate of your switch. So in the practical circuits you will be having the microprocessor or microcontroller, then the amplifier circuit, and then you will be using you will be having the isolation circuit, and then the gate voltage will be applied. Okay, so when you are going to turn on the switch, the path of the current will be like this. Okay, so this is your control voltage, the control signal. You are going to turn on your switch for this interval of the time, and then you are going to remove the base voltage or the gate voltage from your switch, so it will be in the off state. So this is basically the control signal, and that will be amplifying the voltage at this point. Considering that your circuit is operating in the steady state, and we are operating the circuit at the high frequency, we will be assuming that the linearly the current will be changing in your inductor, and that current will be periodic for the stable operation. So starting from some minimum current I1, let's suppose that it will be reaching to the I2 when your switch is turned on, and that time will be equal to dTs. So T on, that is T on by T, that is equal to duty cycle. So duty cycle will be equal to T. This T on can be written as like that, D into Ts, right? And so similarly you can write that this D prime into Ts, D prime is equal to 1 minus D. So you can refer back to the previous videos where we have defined the duty cycle and the D prime, the off duty cycle. Okay, so the current is going to increase from I1 to the I2, and if we calculate the average current, so average current is this one in this switching cycle, and let's represent it with this IL with the brackets, or sometimes I will be using IL average to represent this current. Okay, and this is the continuous conduction mode. Continuous conduction mode means the inductor current is not going to become zero. In the on state it has the positive slope, and in the off state of the switch it has the negative slope, but it is not going to become zero, right? So we will be considering these two states one by one. First of all, when the switch is in the on state, so the time is basically between these two boundaries, starting from 0 up to this point, that is equal to T on, and this T on is equal to D into Ts. And at that instant of time, this is the path of the current. Either the current is passing through the capacitor, or it is going to pass through this resistive load, and the energy is being stored in this inductor, and that is equal to half Li square. Similarly, the energy is being stored in the capacitor, that is equal to half CV square, where V is the voltage across this capacitor, and that is also the voltage across your load, that is equal to V0, right? and in this state the diode is in the open state. When your main switch is in the on, diode is open because you have the positive voltage over here with respect to that one, and your diode is reverse biased, it is not conducting, and the loop for the current is this one, right? Okay, now let's look at the inductor voltage. What's the inductor voltage? How we can define that one? On this side the voltage is Vg, assuming that there is no voltage drop across this switch. When this switch is turned on, so this voltage is going to appear over here, and that is equal to Vg. In the practical case it will be somewhat lesser than this Vg minus the Vd you can consider the voltage drop across that switch. Assuming that it's an ideal switch at the moment, so I can say the voltage over here is equal to Vg, and what's the voltage on this side? That's the load voltage V naught, right? So inductor voltage will be equal to Vg minus V naught, subtracting V naught from Vg. That will be the voltage that will be appearing across the inductor, right? And then you know that the inductor voltage is given as di by dt, so we can say that inductor voltage that is equal to L di by dt is equal to Vg minus V naught, and from here we can say the rate of change of current is Vg minus V naught by L. So what is di by dt? Is basically representing the slope of the current, right? Because over here just look at that one, this is di you can say, and on this side you have the dt, or if I assume this the linear variation, so I can say this is delta I and this is delta t, right? So this is representing the slope Vg minus V naught by L, the slope at which your current in the inductor increasing. This is the positive slope, right? And the voltage across the inductor at that instant of time is Vg minus V naught, right? Okay, now in the mode 2, when you are going to turn off your main switch, so what is going to happen? When you are going to turn off your switch, your inductor has the current, so you know that the inductor does not allow the abrupt changes in the current, and initially when you have the main switch on, the polarity across the inductor is like that. But now how the inductor is going to respond when you are going to interrupt the current? So it will respond by making this point negative and this point positive, because it will be acting as a source, and for source to have this same direction of the current as it was previously there, because you cannot immediately change the direction of the current through the inductor. So now it is going to become the source, and then the current should leave from the positive terminal, and the polarity across your inductor should be reversed. Okay, so when your switch is in the off state, now this diode will be having the negative voltage at its cathode, so it will be turned on. So the path of the current will be like that because of the negative voltage at this point over here. So you can see now the current is going to flow like that. Your diode is in the conduction state, right? So when the diode is in the conduction state, and if I assume that it's an ideal diode, so this point is basically connected over here. So I can say that this inductor is basically connected in parallel to your capacitor and in parallel to your load, right? So your inductor comes in parallel to that one. And what was the direction of the current in your inductor? Direction of the current in the inductor is like that, it is going to flow like that. So just indicate it over here. The current is going to flow from now from negative terminal towards this positive terminal inside your inductor, and the capacitor voltage is indicated like that, and similarly the load voltage is indicated plus minus over here, right? So we have this equivalent circuit in the second mode of operation. So in the first mode of operation your switch S1 was in the on state, in the second mode of operation your diode D1 is in the on state. So now the current in your inductor is continuous, and that current is divided into two parts over here. You can say some part will be going through the capacitor, some part will be going through the load, or the other possibility is that this capacitor will also be delivering the energy to your load. So the loop may be like this, right? Okay, so in the second mode of operation, now let's look at the voltage across the inductor. So what's the voltage? The voltage on this side, this has now been connected with over this reference point, so this is the 0 volt, and the voltage over here is equal to V naught, right? And it is negative with respect to the previous state that you can see over here. Just compare that one. The load voltage is this V naught, so the inductor voltage is equal to minus V naught. So inductor voltage is given as L di by dt, and that should be equal to minus V naught. So the slope of this current can be written as like that, that di by dt is equal to minus V naught by L, right? So your current is now going to decrease, that you can see over here, starting from I2 going towards I1, and the slope is minus V naught by L. The slope is negative, current is decreasing because the energy that was stored half Li square in the inductor is now being dissipated across the load resistance, or being delivered to your load, or maybe delivered to your capacitor. right? So in the on interval dts the slope is positive, and in the off interval, that is d prime ts, your slope is negative, inductor current. And what about the inductor voltage? When your switch was in the off state, this is your voltage across the inductor Vg minus V naught, and in the off state the voltage across the inductor is minus V naught. So now if I sketch the inductor voltage, so in the on interval this is Vg minus V naught, and in the off interval it is minus V naught, and the off interval is d prime into Ts, and the on interval is dTs. Right, so if you look at this area under the curve, this is the positive area, and this one is the negative area because your voltage is negative. So what should be the average voltage across the inductor? As we discussed in the last video, that we will be assuming that inductor voltage is 0 across the inductor in one switching cycle for the converter operation. So it means when the average voltage is 0 across the inductor, it means this positive area and the negative area must be equal. Then the average voltage will be 0. It means how to get this area? This is the voltage, and on this side we have the time. So volt second product over here should be equal to the volt second product over here, voltage into time. So if these two volt second products are equal, then it means the average value across the inductor is 0. Alright, so that you can see over here, Vg minus V naught into dTs, that is this interval, will give you the area of this part, and then d prime into Ts into minus V naught, the product is going to give you the area of this negative part. The sum of these two should be equal to 0. So volt second balance equation for the inductor. The average voltage across the inductor should be 0, and that can be shown with the help of the volt second balance equation. So we have this equation. Now rearranging this one and using the expression for d prime is equal to 1 minus d, that is the off duty cycle, where d is the on duty cycle. So you can write down this expression, and you know that this d plus d prime should be equal to 1, because your total switching cycle time duty cycle is 100. This is proportional to d, this is proportional to d prime. So dts plus d prime Ts, that should be equal to total time period. So Ts will be cancelled, so d plus d prime will be equal to 1. So using that one over here, and when this is going to become 1, so you can write that Vg d into Ts, that should be equal to V naught into Ts. So V naught is equal to d times Vg. Right, so this is the expression relating your output voltage with the input voltage in terms of the duty cycle for the ideal converter. Why I'm going to call it ideal inductor? We have assumed that there is no voltage drop across this switch, there is no voltage drop across the diode, average voltage across the inductor. So for ideal converter, the relationship between the input and the output voltage is this one, V naught, that is equal to d times Vg. And we can say it's a transfer function for this one, because what is the transfer function? Ratio of the output voltage with the input voltage, that is equal to d. So we can say the transfer function for this ideal converter, relating the output voltage with the input voltage, that is a constant one, that is equal to the duty cycle. And we can represent this like that it is the DC to DC converter. It has the certain input, it has the certain output, and we have the control port, and at the control port we are going to give the information of the duty cycle. When we will change this duty cycle, the output voltage will change. And how it will change? It will be like that. So your duty cycle varies between 0 and 1. The minimum value is 0 and the maximum value is 1. So your output voltage will be maximum equal to your input voltage, and for any other duty cycle it will be lesser than the output input voltage. So that's why we are going to call it that it is the buck converter, because your output voltage is less than the input voltage. Okay, so how we have derived the expression relating the input and output? Using the volt second balance equation. So you can work out the transfer function for any converter using this condition. Or the other way around, what you can do, that we discussed in the last video, that the change in the current when your switch was in the on state, this delta I, that is definitely the positive change, and the change in the current when your switch is in the off state, this delta I, should be if we talk in terms of magnitude, these two must be same, and otherwise this is negative, so the sum of these two should be equal to 0. If that is the case, then you have the stable operation. So using this condition, you can also work out for the transfer function, and you will get the same thing. So you can work out the transfer function in either way. Okay, So using the volt second balance, the transfer function of your buck converter is this one. Buck converter is the one in which your output voltage is less than the input voltage. Okay, now let's consider this current waveform of the inductor, and we are going to consider that it is going to operate in the continuous conduction mode. So the average current is this IL, the maximum current is this I2, and the minimum current is this I1, right? And let's suppose that this change in current is equal to 2 delta I, right? And this interval is dTs and this interval is d prime into Ts, and the continuous conduction mode is there. Okay, so this slope that we have worked out on the last slide, this is the slope, the positive slope of your current, and this one is the negative slope, right? So this slope is basically how you define the slope, that is equal to delta y by delta x, change along the y-axis divided by the change along the x-axis. So we can say delta y is equal to slope into delta x. And what is delta y if I consider this whole part, this one, this portion? So what is delta y? Delta y is equal to 2 delta I. So taking this one over here, what is the slope? Slope we have already calculated, Vg minus V naught by L. And what is delta x for this interval? That is equal to d into Ts, or that is equal to T on. So that you can see over here. And T on is written as d into Ts. So we have this expression looking at the slope of the current waveform, and from here we can work out for the delta I. So delta I will be simply equal to Vg minus dVg, and from where we are going to get this dVg, we have defined in the last slide that output voltage is due to cycle times Vg. So taking this one over here, replacing this V naught, so this now further can be written as 1 minus d into Vg into dTs. So d 1 minus d is equal to d prime, so you can write it like this, and finally you can write this expression like this, that Vg into d prime into d divided by 2LF will give you the delta I. So what is delta I? Delta I is basically the current ripple. So change in current above this average value, because we have considered is this change is equal to 2 delta I. So the average value is somewhere over here in between. So above this average value is delta I, below this value is delta I. So total change in current is 2 delta I. Some textbooks consider is 2 delta I, some textbooks consider equal to delta I. If you have delta I, then delta I by 2 will be above this average line and delta I by 2 below that one. But I will be using 2 delta I in this one in our videos. Okay, so from here if you look at the expression for the delta I, that is this one, and if you know the circuit parameters, you can work out for the current ripple. Delta I is the current ripple in the inductor current, right? Okay, so now you can also express this one in terms of the output voltage. Over here this Vg is the input voltage. We have expressed this delta I in terms of input voltage. So if you want to express this delta I in terms of output voltage, so what's the relationship between Vg and output? That is given by this one. So Vg will be equal to V naught by d. So if I write it in terms of that, I can write V naught by d, replacing this Vg, into d prime by 2fl. So d and d prime will be cancelled out. So V naught into d prime divided by 2fl. So you can also express your delta in terms of the output voltage. So this is going to give you the ripple current, and this is the analysis equation. If you know the circuit parameters, you can analyze that what will be the current ripple in the inductor current, right? But if you are asked to design the value of the inductance, you can just rearrange it and you can calculate this in required inductance for the given value of the supply voltage, duty cycle at which you are going to operate your circuit, frequency, switching frequency, and the delta I that you want to adjust. Here you can see there is the inverse relationship between this delta I and L, right? So if your if your inductance is going to increase, delta I will be decreasing. You can also look at from here. If your inductance is increasing, delta I will be decreasing. So current ripple will be controlled by controlling the inductance of this circuit. So you can design your inductance with the help of this expression, and you can analyze your circuit with the help of this one. Okay, now when you will be changing the inductance, just observe this waveform over here. We started, let's suppose this is the inductor current waveform starting from I1 and the I2 for one particular value of the inductance. Now if you are going to keep the load resistance constant, so average current will remain constant. Now before discussing that one, let's come back to this circuit, and from this first mode of operation you can see that what is the average current? This average current I naught will be equal to V naught by R. And what is this V naught average voltage over here? So the inductor current has the ripple current will go through this capacitor, right, and the average current will go through your load. Why the ripple current is going to pass through your capacitor? Because that is, you can see, at high frequency, because we usually operate our converter at the high frequency, and if we are operating at the high frequency, then we can assume that this variation in the current is the linear one. So we are operating at this at very high frequency, and you know that the capacitive reactance, that is equal to 1 by omega c, so that is equal to 1 by 2 by fc. For higher frequencies, this reactance will be very small, so high frequency component will be bypassed. So if I say that we have the current through the inductor like this, and its average value is somewhere over here in between, this is the average value. So the current through the capacitor will be this high frequency current, and the current through the load will be the average current. So average current will be passing through the load, and the high frequency current will be passing through a capacitor. So capacitor is bypassing that one. However, the average current through the capacitor should be 0. So it is positive, and then it is delivering. So average current definitely is at a high frequency, but that will be passing through this capacitor, and the high frequency current passing through the capacitor, and the average current will be passing through the load. Okay, so now coming back towards the point where we were discussing. Okay, so your average current is, let's suppose, is constant, that is passing through the load, and you are changing the inductance. So for higher inductance you have this current, and if you reduce the inductance, so your current will be having the high ripple. So at one particular value of the inductance, the current waveform will be like that, starting from 0 and going toward the maximum one, and then it is going to become 0 and finally coming to this point. From here the next cycle is starting. So you are just right at the point of discontinuity, because if you decrease inductance, just like observe this one, for decreased inductance, now your current is going to become 0 before the end of the cycle. So you have the DCM mode, discontinuous conduction mode, right? So for this continuous conduction mode, your current is going to become 0 before the end of the cycle. So that depends upon the inductance. So for one critical value of the inductance, you will be right at the verge of the discontinuity. Before that there is the continuous current, and after that there is the discontinuous current, right? So we can say that when this delta I, when this 2 delta I, and this we have considered 2 delta I, so when this is 2 times the average current, because when it is small, this is delta I, this one is your average current, right? When you are increasing the ripple, so your average current is still staying at the same point. So what is this one? This is equal to, this delta I is equal to average current IL, and delta I is over here as well. This is delta I and this is delta I, the sum of these two is the 2 delta I. So what is this level? Delta I is equal to IL, the average current of your inductor, and this is delta, this is also equal to delta I, right? So this will also be equal to the average current. So your 2 delta I should be equal to 2 times the average current of your inductor. If this is the case, you will be right at this point. Your current waveform will be like that. You are at the point of the discontinuity, right? So using this one, we can find out the critical inductance, right? At which inductance the inductor current is going to become discontinuous, right? So 2 delta I, that is equal to 2 into IL, and the inductor average current, as I told you over here, if we come back over here, the inductor average current will be passing through the load. High frequency current will be taking the part through the capacitor. So we can say that in this equation, that this average inductor current is the average load current, and that is equal to average voltage divided by the resistance. So we can write it like that, and we have derived the expression for the 2 delta I, or the delta I, if you take the expression over here from here, the current in the ripple, and if you do simplification, so critical inductance will be given by this expression. So if your inductance is less than the value that is obtained by this expression, it means your circuit is operating in the discontinuous conduction mode. And if your inductance is higher than this one, so it means you are operating your circuit in the continuous conduction mode. Your inductor current will be continuous, your load current will be continuous, right? So you have determined the expression for the ripple current, you have determined the expression for the current, calculation of the inductance for the given value of the delta I, and you have determined the expression for the critical inductance of your converter circuit. Now finally looking for the capacitor, because we have the capacitor in this circuit as well, that is regulating the voltage at the load terminal. So when you are the average current through the capacitor should be 0 for the stable operation. So it will be taking the current and then it will be delivering the current, right? When the load voltage will be decreasing, so it will be pumping the current over here and will be maintaining the voltage. So for capacitor we can now look at this waveform, that the average value of the capacitor current is 0. So its current, you can say, it is going to vary like that high frequency current of the inductor that is passing through the capacitor, that is this one. So the charge that is delivered to the capacitor must be taken out from the capacitor for its stable operation. So for that, now we can use that concept. So what is the charge delivered to your capacitor? That is this one. And you can say that the charge that is extracted from your capacitor, that is this one in one switching cycle. So charge delivered and charge extracted must be same. So we have the linear variation of the current. So let's now look at the area under this curve, because this is the current waveform, and you know that over on this axis we have the time. So the current multiplied by the time will be the charge, positive charge over here, and this one is the negative portion and this one is the negative portion, right? So average value is somewhere in between, and that is equal to 0. The capacitor current, average current should be 0. So now the area of this triangle can be calculated like that, half base into height. So what is the base? This base is equal to Ts by 2 and the height is equal to delta I, right? So that is delta I. So Ts can be written as in terms of F, 1 by F, and we can write that this area, that is equal to change in the charge in your capacitor, the charge that is pumped into the capacitor, that is this one. So delta Q is equal to delta I by 4F. Okay, so same charge will be taken out. So now when the charge in your capacitor will be changing, the charge and voltage are related through the capacitance. So the voltage across your capacitor will be changing accordingly when the charge will be changing, right? So Q is equal to C, delta Q is equal to C into delta V. So we can write it like that using the basic capacitor voltage. So that can be written equal to delta I by 4F, and we have derived the expression for the delta I previously. Using that one I can write it like this, and simplifying this one we can work out for the delta Vc, that is the capacitor voltage variation, that is given by this one. That you can also express in terms of the output voltage. In terms of output voltage, it will be V naught into D prime by 16 L F square into C, and in terms of input voltage it will be Vg into D, right? So this is the expression for the variation in the output voltage when the high frequency inductor current will be passing through this one high frequency capacitor current, and we are saying that the charge that is stored, the same charge will have to be delivered by this capacitor for the stable operation. So in the half cycle, let's suppose that it is if we look at that part, if this average value becomes 0, because the average value of the capacitor current should be 0, because average current is passing through the load. So capacitor current will be like this if you subtract the average value, because average current is passing through the load and the high frequency current is passing through the capacitor. So and that is going to pass like that, right? So this is the positive portion, you can say, and this is the negative portion. So these two charges must be equal, and we can relate it with the capacitance, and the capacitor voltage is the function of that one. If the charge over the capacitor is changing, definitely the voltage will be changing, because it is taking the charge and then it is delivering the charge, right? So delta Q over here and over here must be same, and using that concept you can find out the voltage variation across the capacitor. So that is this one, that is the capacitor voltage variation, and the capacitor is connected and parallel to the load, so that will be the variation in the load voltage. So if you are designing a power supply, what you can do, you want to have the minimum delta Vc. So for that variation in the voltage, you can find out what should be the value of the capacitance. So this equation can be used for the design, and this equation can be used for the analysis. So if you have the circuit parameter information, you know Vg, you know D, you know F, the inductance, you can find out that what will be the change in the capacitor voltage, and that will appear across the load, and you can minimize it by the appropriate selection of the capacitor that can be calculated with the help of this expression. And now for the critical capacitance, because when you are decreasing the capacitance, this current variation will be increasing over here, and that will be resulting in the more voltage variation across the load terminal. So for critical value of the capacitance, as we drive discussed over here for the inductance, the change in the current 2 delta I, because we have considered it 2 delta I, should be equal to 2 times the average current. At that point you will be at the point of discontinuity, right? So same condition can be applied for the capacitor, that 2 into delta Vc should be equal to 2 V naught, where V naught is the average value of the capacitor voltage or the load voltage, because capacitor is connected in parallel to the load. So using this condition, taking the value of the delta Vc from this equation and simplifying that, you can find out the value of the critical capacitance, so that is given by this expression. So now summarizing this video, we have calculated the method at how we can calculate this inductance for the given value of the delta I, how we can calculate this capacitance for the given value of the delta V, where delta V is the variation in the output voltage. If that is known to you, you can find out the capacitance. You can, if delta I is known, because delta I is the inductor current variation will be equal to your source current variation. So if that is known, so it means that for the required delta I and delta V at the load, you can design this inductance and the capacitance. Or if the circuit parameters are known, we have seen the analysis expression, so you can find out what will be the delta I and what will be the delta V across this capacitor, right? So you can work out, you can completely design your filter circuit consisting of the inductor and the capacitor. So basically a two-pole filter. Okay, then how to work out for the value of the diode. Diode current, the diode conducts for the half of the um, cycle, or you can say for off interval. If I go back and look at over here for the second mode of operation, right? For the second mode of operation, your diode is active. So based upon that, if you work out the current for that one, the average current for this part, for this application, you are going to design the buck converter for that one. So this current is basically the current passing through the diode. So taking the average value of this one, you can decide about the average current of the diode, right? And for practical implementation, 25% higher ratings are selected. So diode current rating can be determined, and definitely it will be turning on and off at the rate at which you are turning on this switch. So the switching frequency is very important. You should select this diode which is capable of operating at the high frequency, should have low reverse recovery time, otherwise this will not be operating, your circuit will not be operating properly, because it will be taking a longer time to be turned off, or if it is quite large, then even the energy stored in the inductor will not be able to be delivered to your resistance if your diode is not turned on abruptly. So you should have the high frequency diodes. Ultra fast diodes, UF series is usually used, or DD54 is used. So the high frequency diode is to be used over here, right? So you can work out the current from the turn off mode, taking the area under that curve, and what maximum voltage it will have to withstand. So when this switch is turned on, so this voltage is going to appear over here, plus Vg. So the reverse breakdown voltage should be higher than this Vg, right? So the reverse breakdown rating will be equal to Vg. The current I2 can be calculated by looking at the off interval current, and the switching frequency will be according to this switching frequency of this switch. Similarly, the selection of this switch S1 can be made by looking at the frequency at which you are going to operate, the voltage at which you are going to operate that one, the supply voltage, because that will be directly appearing at the terminal of your switch, and the current, in this case the current portion I1 will be passing through this switch. So if I look at the current waveform, if I go back over here, so in the first mode of operation, this portion of the current, this one, let me call it A1, this portion of the current is basically through the switch S1, and this portion of the current is basically passing through the diode right? So this will be the average value of this one will give you the DC value of the diode, and the average value of this portion will give you the DC value of the current that is passing through that switch. Now if you look at the current at the source current is discontinuous in this converter. You're only taking the converter current, you are taking the current from the source when this switch is on, and this switch is on only in this interval of time, so your source current will be discontinuous. So if I ask from you that what is the source current waveform, so that will be only this part. So let me first of all clear this. So source current will be this one from here, and then it will become 0. This is the source current. Source current is discontinuous. Source is not continuously connected with your load. So that is the drawback of this buck converter, that if you have the solar panels over here and you are extracting the energy from solar panels, so energy is available, but you are not extracting for this portion. You are just utilizing the current for this part, so you are not utilizing your solar panels properly if you have this one, the supply from the solar panel. So buck converter is not used with the solar panel applications because the source current is discontinuous. Load current is continuous. Load current is like that because you have this path and then you have this path. So diode is connected to make the load current continuous, but your source current is discontinuous. So that is the disadvantage of the buck converter, specifically in the applications where you have the renewable, because you will not be utilizing the renewable energy resources efficiently, right? So if I summarize this video, we have seen that how we can find out how we can analyze the circuit, what are the inductor current waveform, load current waveform, how we can analyze the ripple in the current, ripple in the voltage, looking at the capacitor, and how we can find out the average value, and how we can design these components. So by the end of this video, now you should be able to design the circuit for the given input and the output voltage given at given frequency. So you can find out at which duty cycle you will have to operate to get the output DC voltage, and the output voltage in this case is D times Vg, right? So this little video is dedicated to the buck converter, and we have discussed its analysis and its design, and we have seen that how we can select the components. So that's all from this video. Thank you very much.